Welcome back to Real Women Stories with me, Lisa Quait. I'm a 50-year-old mum. I'm work full time and I'm a life coach. And you know what? Sometimes I get things wrong, just like you. So this podcast is called Real Women Stories because it's about us. So we don't feel alone. So it doesn't matter if we stumble over our words or if we make mistakes, because after all, we're just human, aren't we? And we're real women. So I'm trying to build this community so you guys don't feel alone. Now, in this episode, I'm going to be covering relationships. It links nicely with the previous episode where I invited my dear friend and colleague, Kat, to talk about Taylor Swift and is she a good role model? And when we delved into the conversation, quite a lot came up about relationships and about the pressures that society puts on us with our relationships. I just want to kind of delve into how that affected me. I was in my late 20s. I'd just come back from traveling, and all of my friends were getting married. They were all getting married, they were all having babies, or they were in a relationship and waiting to get engaged. And I hadn't really had, oh, I hadn't had a long relationship for a very, very long time because I'd been traveling. Um, that really put a lot of pressure on me, watching everyone else around me get on with their lives. They were going to get houses, and there was me, little old me, came home from traveling with a suitcase and not a pot to piss in. Um, so I met my first husband, and I remember going through the motions, and I was in love with him. And I remember having quite a lot of doubts in that relationship, but kind of got swept away with the moment. It was like everyone was getting married, we were being invited to their weddings, and that pressure really, I think, took its toll on us. And subsequently, he and I didn't stay together. We were completely different people, we didn't have the same values. And I think that as the relationship went on, I realized that we weren't going to stay together. And I never wanted to be a single mum. That was one thing. I've come from a divorced home, and that was one thing. So it was really, really, really hard for me to deal with. It was hard for me to walk away from that relationship, but I knew in my heart it was going to be better all round for both of us. So let's talk about relationships. Now, Kat, she explained she's 30, 34 years old. She's single and she is child free. Now, we're saying child free because we had a whole debate about being childless or child free. Again, the pressures of society and what that imposes on us. So, would you rather, at 34, 35 years old, be in a relationship that you're not happy with, that you know that it's not going anywhere? Or would you prefer to be on your own and living your best life? Because after all, I think that if you take a look around you and you see the world, there is opportunity out there. And it doesn't mean that at this age, you have to be married and you have to have children. Everyone's doing things, a lot later now. But still inside, we have that horrible feeling of we're missing out. We should be doing these things. So I think it would be a really good idea. And this is just my advice. And this is just the way that I would think about things, because obviously I've gone through my process. And I'm not going to say I've made my mistakes. I just made wrong decisions. I made wrong choices. So before you make a decision, before you make a choice to commit to somebody for it's meant to be the rest of your life and to bring a child into this world, maybe have a few chats around your values. Is this what we want? Is our future going in the same way? I know that I always loved traveling, and I was quite energetic. I love my fitness. Um, you know, think, do you have things in common? I mean, you don't have to be exactly the same people. You don't have to have the same interests, but you have to have the same morals and values, so that when you do make decisions in life, that they will be on this. You will both be on the same page. I did actually ask Kat. I said, "Look, from this conversation, what do you think? What message would you want me to give out to any of the listeners?" And she said, we need to start accepting ourselves for who we are and not be afraid to be on our own. Because if you accept yourself and if you like yourself, then being with somebody else will just be an addition to who you are, rather than it wouldn't mean people wouldn't look at you as being those two people. You can still be an individual person. So whether or not you're with someone else or you're on your own, you would still be that same person, and you would still have those same feelings. So being on your own wouldn't matter. I think one of the biggest things that came out of it was not comparing yourself to your peers. Everyone's on a different journey. Everyone is on a different timeline. And that timeline is important. Society, who says that we have to have, relationships in our 20s, to then buy a house in our 30s, to then get engaged, to get married and then have children? Why do we have to put an age on things? It's hard enough living our lives anyway. So why don't we just kind of go with the flow a little bit more? Just see what happens rather than try to plan things, which, I mean, I'm terrible at doing that. Everything for me was planned. And I think that's how I got into my first relationship. My life was planned out for me. I was going to go traveling, then I was going to meet someone, get married, have a baby, and live happily ever after. Life doesn't always turn out like that. So I think we have to be real and honest with ourselves as well. So I'll give you an example. I was talking to a friend, and her daughter had just split up with her boyfriend, and so had her best friends. So the best friends are on the same page. They've both been in long relationships. They split up and they had some time out to themselves, and both of them said, right, come on, let's get on the dating apps. Let's start dating people and see, what's out there. So my friend's daughter was dating, nothing was really happening. And her best friend, within the third date, had met someone, is now in a relationship, and they're now living together. And this other person is looking at her friend thinking, well, why is that not happening to me? So we had a conversation about it, and we were like, well, hold on a minute. You've just bought a flat. Why don't you spend some time in that flat enjoying it? And she said, you know what, you're right. I'm actually not ready for a relationship yet. I'm not ready to explore anything yet, which is probably why she hasn't met anybody. So it doesn't matter if you're the same age, you're going through the same process, but all of a sudden, one person starts planning their lives and getting into a relationship, and the other person says, hang on a minute, that's not right for me right now. I want to do a bit of traveling, maybe I might have a career change. So I think what we need to do is wipe these default settings, and let's just look at ourselves as individual people and not be pressured by what society says, by what our peers say. And you know what? It's us inside who puts that pressure on ourselves. After all, life is about living it and making the most of it. And a lot of people, I think, make the wrong choices and make the wrong decisions for that. So I guess this episode, it's really about Kat's journey and her educating me, because I hadn't really thought about society. When I was going through all the motions with my ex-husband, I hadn't really thought about all of that. So if we can, as mums, as grandmas, and as young people with our friends, embrace the fact that there shouldn't be these timelines and pressures on society. We should all do things at our own pace. We shouldn't judge, and we shouldn't ask questions to put pressure on that person, because everyone will do whatever they need to do throughout their lives when the time is right for them. As I said, I've learned from having my conversation with Kat, that it's okay, it's fine. So let's pull together, let's support each other, let's empower each other to live our lives at the pace that we wish to, and embrace that and not be judgmental and make other people feel good about the journey they're on and feel rewarded and look at all the good stuff that they've been doing in their lives as well. It's not just about getting married and having babies. As I said, you get life experiences from traveling, from career changes. So yeah, let's try and pull together. If you have enjoyed this episode, I'd love to hear from you. And if there are other topics surrounding relationships that you would like me to cover, indeed, if you have a story yourself that you would like to come onto my podcast and we can have a great old chat, I am a friendly face and we can do it over a cup of tea or even a glass of wine if you like. So get in touch with me. My email address is TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. It's TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. And if you like this episode or any of our other episodes, go on, give us a review, give us a rating, because then we know that you're liking what we're doing. It would be fantastic to hear from you. So either email me at TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com or leave us a review and a rating on your app so we know that you're enjoying this episode and any other episodes that you've listened to. Have a fantastic week.